Hey. Wizards has updated the bracket system for commanders, so let's go over quickly all the things that you should know moving forward. One thing that was put out is how much Wizards took into consideration our feedback about the alpha stage of the bracket system. One of the main things being better guidelines of what's expected for each bracket. And Wizards has come up with 2 ways to give better guidelines for each bracket. The first one is going to be the expectation of how your deck is going to win, being your deck's contents, types of win conditions, and game plan. And the second one's a little bit harder to tell, as even Wizards says themselves, but it's going to be how many turns you can generally expect a game to last before someone wins. And let's go bracket by bracket to see how these changes are going into full effect from the previous counterpart. Quickly going over bracket 1, this is still going to be our theme bracket in a sense, where we're going to be prioritizing a goal, theme, or an idea over the exact power level. They've added some slight stipulation to help narrow down what a bracket 1 is, being that the win condition is highly thematic or substandard, and that gameplay is an opportunity to just show off your creation skills. Meaning, of course, we're not going to be seeing a lot of Craterhoof behemoths unless your deck is somehow thematically around a Craterhoof style effect. Once again, prioritizing our theme and our creation over power level, and this can really be seen with the added stipulation that a bracket 1 game can expect at least 9 turns before you win or lose. Magic adding a good stipulation that players should in bracket 1 feel like they have time to showcase their decks and really show off the theme that they built the deck around. Bracket 1 kind of having the least amount of changes as the other brackets, still being the thematic bracket that we thought of it before, just having a couple of stipulations to really help us narrow down what the bracket is meant to symbolize. Now moving over to bracket 2, we can see that decks are still unoptimized but are just straightforward, with some cards that are chosen to maximize creativity and or entertainment. And as we go down the new conditions for bracket 2, we can see that entertainment is a big keyword that symbolizes this bracket. Our win conditions are going to be incremental, telegraphed on the board, and disruptible, meaning that other players can kind of see our win coming from 1 or 2 turns away and are going to have a chance to stop us, once again adding to the entertainment of a game. Gameplay is very low pressure and low stakes with an emphasis on social interaction, and to be proactive and considerate, letting each other deck show its plan, basically letting each deck do its thing. Your bracket 2 deck can stop someone from winning, but it's not really going to stop them from setting up to win, if that makes sense. The biggest change for bracket 2 decks is that precons are no longer directly tied to it, and Wizards stating that this is because a lot of precons are just varied in their power level. As they state, precons from 5 years ago might not be able to even hold up with precons that came out this year. And so while they state that precons in bracket 2 is a good starting point for new players to get their footing in the Commander format, they do not want to directly tie precons to this bracket level. Another one of the big changes, not just for bracket 2, but just the bracket system as a whole, is that they are removing tutor restrictions entirely. While they do still fear that the lower bracket systems might be able to abuse this new tutor system, they do state that a lot of the already very powerful tutors are on the Game Changers list, and if you're spending 4 mana for something like a Diabolic Tutor, is that really a huge problem in lower brackets? Bracket 2 now finally has the restriction that you can expect games to go at least 8 turns, just 1 down from a bracket 1 before you win or lose. And now moving into the higher bracket tiers, bracket 3 is going to be the upgraded tier, of course, where decks can be powered up with strong synergy and high card quality that they can effectively disrupt opponents. This meaning that now you're able to stop your opponents for setting up for a win instead of whenever they go for it. You're able to stop them from making all these tokens and not just counter their Craterhoof. They also have a new condition for what type of game changers can go into bracket 3, where these game changers are more value engines and game-ending spells over stuff like fast mana. As we'll get into with how many turns you can expect from the higher brackets, this gets into how these game changers are going to give that person value over time versus that lethal fast mana to push them ahead and go for an early win. Your win conditions can now be deployed and activated during 1 big turn from your hand, usually because of steadily accrued resources like we went over with the game changers restriction. You are no longer just playing proactively doing your game plan, but you're now very reactive as we enter bracket 3 with people pushing to win. Finally, you can expect at least 6 turns before you win or lose in a bracket 3 deck, 2 down from bracket 2. Moving into the 2 higher tiers, we have bracket 4 Optimize, where decks do not adhere to the CEDH metagame, which is reserved for bracket 5, but they are still lethal, consistent, and fast, designed just to take people out as fast as possible. Gloves are off whenever it comes to game changers, as you're allowed for fast mana, snowballing for resources, and free disruption, and any tutor you want. Win conditions can vary and are very effective and just instantaneous. Of course, your game plan is explosive, powerful, featuring the big hitters in the Commander format. The only real difference between Bracket 4 and Bracket 5, as we'll get into, is just the turns that you can expect. Bracket 4, they have the clear distinction that a game should last at least 4 turns before you win or lose, where in Bracket 5, someone can win at any turn. This being really the only distinction between Bracket 4 and 5, as all of the game changers you can play are still the same, win conditions are relatively the same, you're just not pushing for that early turn 1 to 3 win. And to really go over the new turn system criteria quickly, I think it's a really good way to narrow down the bracket system. I would say whenever you're building decks, don't try and say, my deck can win in this many turns. Try to say, my deck can actively stop someone from pushing to a win on these turns. There are a lot of CEDH decks that usually win around turn 4, but them winning on turn 4 doesn't make it bracket 4, it means that their deck can handle someone pushing for a win on any turn, and they expect that going in. And that's how I would build decks for any of these brackets. Whenever I build a bracket 3 deck, I'm not always looking to win the game on turn 6. What I should be looking for is, can my deck stop someone from pushing to a win on turn 6? If it can't, it's probably not bracket 3. And now for our last point, we're going to be going over the Game Changers list and what cards they took off. And there are 2 main categories of why they took cards off of the Game Changers list, the first one being high mana value cards, these being Expropriate, Gingataxias Core Augur, Sway of the Stars, and Vorinclex Voice of Hunger. The reason that these cards are taken off of the Game Changers list according to Wizards is that in Commanders, these high mana value spells are just going to be strong if you're using them. And with them narrowing down which Game Changers can be used in different brackets, not having fast mana allowed in bracket 3 means that these cards will almost never be played very early. And once again, with fast mana taken out of bracket 3, that means that from bracket 3 and below, these cards are not going to be out early, causing ruckus in games. The second main category is going to be legends that are strongest in the command zone, this being Kinnan, Urza Lord High Artificer, Winota Joiner of Forces, and Yuriko the Tiger Shadow. And as the name kind of provides, these are cards that are just ultra powerful in the command zone because you have easy access to get them back after they've been removed. And with the bracket system having the new turn timer, it's going to be very hard for someone to justify having these in a bracket 1 or 2 deck without getting some bad looks from the table. And so while I would still expect these cards to kinda be soft lock in bracket 3 and above, Wizards is fine taking them off the Game Changers list as they state they are no longer ranking Game Changers just on power alone. The final 2 cards taken off of the Game Changers list that didn't really fit either of the 2 main categories is going to be Deflecting Swat and Food Chain. Starting with Deflecting Swat, while Wizards says that it is still very powerful being a free spell, it is a notch below the free counter magic like Force of Will and Fierce Guardianship. Wizards feeling that it's not up to par with these other game changers, prompting them to take it off the list. Moving to Food Chain, Wizards does admit that it is a very powerful combo card, however, it's just a combo card as they state. As we've seen, the bracket systems already do a pretty good job of limiting how many combos, if you can even have them at all, in brackets 3, 2, and 1, so having Food Chain as a game changer is kind of just repetitive, and they thought it was a good idea to take it off the list because of these reasons. And so now you know the key points of what has been updated with the bracket system. I'll leave the full article written by Gavin Verhey in the description below, as it's a pretty good read if you want some more info on why certain things have been changed. But that's going to do it for me here at the Top Deck, so until next time, have a good one.